Today we have Paulette McCormack, who is the founder and owner of Fresh HR Insights. Paulette has over 11 years of both national and international experience in the HR field and is also a lecturer at Griffith University. As a way of introduction, Paulette, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Fresh HR Insights was founded over 5.5 years ago. So we noticed a gap in the market with small business owners on the Gold Coast. They were going to the Fair Work site and getting confused. There's so much legislation on there, so much terminology, and they didn't really know which way to look. And often where they thought they were doing the right thing, they actually did the wrong thing. So we kind of stepped into that market to give them practical advice and using the terminology that they actually understand within the employment law side of it as well, to help them along. So just get in there and get it done for them.
The Gold Coast is the micro capital of Australian businesses, with many small to medium-sized companies. Some may only have 1 or 2 team members. Many are seeing a surge in business activity from the construction boom and tourism. What is the time to start thinking about employing a new team member, and what do you need to think about first?
It's a really interesting question. It's one that a lot of people are coming across. When's the right time, to bring somebody in? First and foremost, I would suggest people actually look at their budget and whether they can actually afford to bring a person on board. So maybe for 3 to 6 months, put the money aside for having an employee. So think of what you're going to be paying them weekly. Take into account their 4 weeks annual leave, their leave loading as well. Some sick days as well, so take into account 10 days sick days in there too, and also the training cost. And put that aside every week as a matter of habit. And if you can comfortably afford that and it doesn't affect you and you don't have to dive into it, then maybe it's the right time to bring somebody on board. And then when the time comes, you've then got a buffer there should something happen within the business as well. So it's kind of like a saving nest at the same time. When you do bring someone on board, I highly recommend bringing in a casual first. So if it's your first employee, bring in a casual so then you can test the waters to see what they're going to be doing, see if you've got the right jobs available for them to actually do and whether they're the right person for you. The great thing with a casual is when there's a downturn in work, there's no obligation for ongoing employment. So you can drop it, you can move their hours up and down as you need to in the requirements of the business. If you bring in a permanent part-time or a permanent full-time employee, no matter whether there's the work or not, you still need to pay them the wages. That's why a casual is better. So give it about 5 or 6 months with a casual on board and see how it goes from there. And then you can determine if it's right for you.
Once you've started employing team members, could you give your views on the need for policies and procedures in the workplace? And what are the benefits to the business having these in place?
Every business, no matter what their size or no matter what industry, really should have policies and procedures in place within a business. So the policies and procedures set a framework for how you do things around here. Having also them in place sets the guidelines, the frameworks and the expectations that you have on your employees, and also something to follow. Now, one of the things Fair Work looks at, for example, in an unfair dismissal case, is procedural fairness. So if you haven't got any procedures in place, or worse, you haven't followed them, then that actually could go against you in front of Fair Work if you do have an unfair dismissal claim, as an example. So having the policies and procedures in place will help you along that. If you have something that comes up at work, not only you, but your managers then have something to go look back to, and employees know what's expected of them as well. So we all need frameworks. We've all been brought up by guidelines from our parents, and in the workplace is no different. We all need to know what's expected of us so we can do it in an effective manner.
Another common issue worth discussing is absenteeism and turning up to work late. What can you do and not do as an employee when faced with these issues, especially after weekends and holidays? Is there something that we can put in place for that?
It comes down to, again, having your policies and procedures in place. So one of them is your absenteeism policy, having that in place and making very clear what the expectations are in relation to that. So you would have in there when you need to call in, who you need to call. Definitely text messages are not appropriate form of calling in absent for work. But also putting in there, and it's something we do stand in our absenteeism policy, is if you are absent from work on or before a long holiday or long weekend or on or before a period of leave, then you are required to produce a medical note. Now, employees under the Fair Work Act are entitled to take time off work if they're sick and unwell, so you can't stop people from doing that. But it starts pushing the boundaries when you know somebody is taking the mickey with that. If they are coming in late from work, always have a conversation with them. Communication is really vital within a workplace. With our social media, yes, it's great, but it really is stopping people from communicating effectively. So don't be afraid to have a chat with your team member. I noticed you were late into work. I just wanted to see if there was anything that we need to know about. With all the roadworks around the Gold Coast, with the Commonwealth Games coming up, people are going to get caught in traffic. The traffic is going to increase, so it may be as simple as that. So for a period of time, you may need to adjust their hours. They can come in earlier or come in later, as an example, finish earlier and later. They may have carers' responsibilities that you are unaware of, so you need to find out about that as well. Again, maybe you can offer some flexibility in their hours. So all those things. If it's none of those, then you can let them know, look, you need to be on time. This is your starting time. This is your finishing time. There is no other reason why you're not here. I do expect you to be in work in time. If you choose not to do that, we may have to look at some managerial action.
An alternative to employing someone full-time could be the use of a subcontractor, but that brings issues as well. Even if they provide an ABN and an invoice, the issue may be that they in fact are full-time. What should you do in this case?
This is one people get tripped on quite a lot, and it can become quite costly, and I can certainly give an example of it becoming costly for a particular employer. So with that, if they're not a subcontractor and they are deemed to be an employee, then it's a sham contract. So how do you determine if it's a sham contract? Well, you look at the totality of the relationship. So if you're paying a subcontractor an hourly rate, well, that's actually a characteristic of an employee. So they would look, are they an employee or not? So a subcontractor, you would ideally be paying them per project. So if they've got a project, say for example, if they're a tiler to tile a house, when they've finished that project, then that's the end of their contract. Okay, but if you're paying them an hourly rate and there's ongoing work, then that's a characteristic of an employee. You'd also look at the level of control. So if you told them they have to be at work at 9 o'clock, they finish at 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday, then that's quite a level of control. But it also means they can't go out and do work for somebody else. Now that's a characteristic of an employee again. If you're providing all the tools and all the equipment for them as well, a company vehicle, company uniform and everything, then that's a characteristic of an employee. But if they provide all those tools and equipment, then that's a characteristic of a contractor. A contractor would also have their own insurances, so they'd have their own public liability insurance, for an example, or their own professional indemnity insurance along with that as well. If you have got someone who's deemed to be a employee through the totality of the relationship, you're going to have the ATO coming after you as well, because you've got your tax and your super obligations too. So you can get fined quite heavily for it.
Other issues worth considering are conflict management, issues around unfair dismissal, and responding to workplace complaints such as bullying. I'm sure all of these, Paulette, you'd be happy to discuss with people that could contact you.
Most definitely. So that's our speciality. That's what we're there for. We're there to make employers' lives a lot easier, so they're not getting bogged down with the employee issues, and certainly not stressing out about it. We go in there, we make it as easy as possible, and we use the best terminology and make it so practical for them. And what we do have available as well is I've written a series of ebooks, but one of them that actually is very important is missing in action. So I talk about absenteeism and what you can actually do about that. So I'm happy to give away those ebooks. So if people want to email me, then I can send it through to them at no charge. Valuable information contained within there for them.
And details of Paulette's contacts appear on our website and also in the end frame.
And we do also have our employee handbook on sale at the moment, so for the month of September, so that's available as well. So that's all on our website, and we do have an advice line as well. So if you just want to phone up, first 30 minutes is free for new contacts. So you can phone up, book in your time through our website, and we can have a chat with you about what's going on in your workplace and how we can help.
Thank you, Paulette, for your time today, and look forward to speaking with you again.
Awesome, thank you very much.